So today, essential practices to keep your dry scrubber at peak performance. It's going to be presented by Matthew Wood. I apologize. Give me 1 second. I'm having some technical difficulties on my end. I apologize about that. Today, I am your speaker, Matthew Wood. I am our field services manager here at Pure Air Filtration. I've been with Pure Air just a little over a year. I have a background in maintenance management. I've had a few positions of various management jobs in maintenance, multiple different OSHA certifications, and I'm a proud U.S. Army veteran. We also have a guest speaker. I'll let him introduce himself.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. So Chris Salstrom, I am the Vice President and General Manager of Service at Clean Water One, and I have an extensive background in parts sales, service sales, and maintenance management. I'll pass it back to you, Matt.
Thank you. I apologize. It is still giving me a hard time. Here we go.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I just wanted to just take a moment to kind of share our services organization overall. So, Pure Air is now part of the Clean Water One family. And as you can see here on the top left, we have a really good network of service technicians throughout North America, some of which have similar backgrounds to Matthew. We've got former military service members. We've got a full-time scientist on staff, actually two of those now. A ton of highly technical experts and a lot of folks with water and wastewater operator backgrounds. And, you know, some of the things that we do in the field or on site, we obviously, we sell equipment, but we do startup and commissioning services for that new equipment. We do offer now service agreements and service contracts for preventative maintenance as well as media replacement. So we do a ton of media replacement for our odor control systems across the U.S. and across the world. And then finally, something that we've really started to put an emphasis on is training. Right, we want to be able to provide the best service, but also the best training for the new equipment that's being installed, and then the existing equipment that's in the field. And then finally, here I'd also like to highlight Clean Water One also manufactures Velodyne and UGSI chemical feed products, and we provide service, parts, and contracts for that equipment as well. And most of those machines are found at wastewater treatment facilities. So I will pass it back to you, Matt.
Thank you again, Chris. All right, our presentation overview. Today, we're going to go over our introduction, what impacts our dry scrubbers performance, routine maintenance best practices, what to look for, media management, your media sampling, lab testing, your mist and grease maintenance, those are your pre-filters, your common issues and troubleshooting, small upgrades that are going to make a big impact for you, and then we'll have some question and answers there at the end. All right, so there are definitely many types of units that are going to be designed to remove various different gases, whether it's going to be our odorous gases, our corrosive gases, toxic gases. We're going to use them to protect people, electronics, equipment, all that good stuff. We have various different systems here. Our modular systems can be on smaller indoor applications. We have our deep bed scrubbers, going to have a bigger media bed, last a little bit longer. Our emergency gas scrubbers as well. And then we also have horizontal and vertical systems for all three different types of systems. So we can just about cater these to any size, shape, form, or application there. All right, so we have a poll question. Who do we have in the audience today? All right, let's look at that poll. Looked like we had a lot of engineers today. That is good to see, a lot of maintenance management teams. Moving on, dry scrubber performance, our major impacts. Your media condition and saturation. Your media is definitely going to be your lifeblood of your system. That is what is going to do the bulk of your filtering, if you will. Your media level is definitely wanting to be maintained at a level amount. So you want it level across the top of your media bed. There are actually, you don't want to overfill a system, as that can choke it out and make that motor work too much. And then some systems you don't want to have too little, as some are designed to be completely full, and too little is going to allow some of that gas to escape. As we can see here, media condition and saturation, you can see the different media beds here. Airflow and system design. Airflow and system design, we can design systems and cater them to just about any type of need. We have various different engineers, whether it's going to be our mechanical, industrial, we even have aerospace and civil engineers on payroll. So that is nice to know that we have a lot of team to support and really cater these units to just about any size, shape, or usage. Definitely something you want to take into account, though, is placement of your unit with environmental and operational factors. Want to put them in least corrosive environments. A lot of the time we're scrubbing corrosive gases. And so if we can keep these motors and expensive components on these units scrubbing out of our corrosive air, that's the best solution possible there. And then lastly, our pre-filtration up here. Our mist and grease pads, they're going to remove a lot of the moisture in the air. That's going to help your media to not clump and become one big brick here. I would recommend every 3 to 6 months replacing them or washing them down with a good power wash, letting them completely dry before reinstalling those back into your systems. All right, routine maintenance best practices. Consistent maintenance is very key. You have your key inspection points depending on unit type. You want to do a visual check of your gauges. I would say getting really familiar with your system here is going to help you know when you have an issue with your system. If you know the normalities of your system, you're going to immediately notice when something's going askew, something's going awry. You'll be the first person to really catch it and proactively make something happen about that. A lot of the times we don't catch something until it's already broken, and then instead of doing preventative maintenance, we're playing a game of catch up, waiting on parts, whatever it is. We can also get hit with a lot of that sticker shock. So a lot of that preventative maintenance is going to help you to save money and not get hit with your sticker shock. We do have visual checks like your gauges. You don't want to make sure you don't have a pressure drop. You have a pressure drop, you may need to check that your gauges aren't clogged, your tubing's not clogged, anything like that. Airflow is a big one. You want to take airflow readings with an anemometer pretty regularly. You should know how much CFM your unit is putting through. Get good airflow readings regularly, make sure that that blower is working as it should, not getting bogged down or anything like that. Pre-filter changes, those pre-filters, you want to keep your unit up and running at the best tip-top performance and shape, and pre-filters are going to really help your media to get the most usability out of your media and get your money's worth there. You know, lubrication and motor bearings, those motors get pretty expensive depending on the CFM coming off of those. And so we definitely want to make sure we're doing motor maintenance and not allowing a motor to go out early on us just for a lack of maintenance. Majority of broken systems definitely could have been prevented if caught early, saving significant cost. So media management, how to know when to change your media. We do have various different types of media, definitely catered to different applications. And again, your media is your lifeblood of your system. Our potassium permanganate impregnated media here is going to have this nice purple hue to it. This purple is a really good visual indicator of your lifeblood of your media. As you can see, as it starts to lose its usability, we have a brown color to it. You can actually crush these, and if they do have some purple in them, they are still usable, but we definitely know it's waning in its usability. You see here as it's completely used up, it doesn't even clump together anymore. It's completely lost its compacted shape, and it's just a particulate dust, if we will. Our other visual indicators that are going to help you out is like a media bed rod or a media bed indicator. This is an actual rod that is inserted down into the system and into your media bed. And so we'll see corrosion on the part that is down in the media bed. And at about 50 to 75% corrosion indicates upcoming media replacement. It's a really good visual indicator to help you out. As you can see, it's being removed here. This is a newer one, so it hasn't really been corroded, but this is a very good visual example of a visual tool that is used in real time to help monitor everything in that media life. Smell test, you know, everyone does a smell test, and you can smell that gas that you're filtering. We already know we have breakthrough then, so that's not a great way of making sure that your media is still usable. And then we even have electronic monitoring as this lifeguard system here. So these have sensors throughout the media bed, and they're going to give you real-time percentages and an actual estimated change-out date, or how many days until your next change-out. This is very good and very useful. I would say it really takes a lot of the guesswork out of things, as well as sending your media in to get tested with us. And then chlorine scrubbers, they're a little bit different. I would definitely recommend you're getting your media there tested annually, just because your chlorine scrubber is a safety device used to save lives, and you definitely want to make sure they're not usually used until you do have an emergency. So you just want to make sure that that media is viable while sitting there. And then about 30% life remaining on your media is when you probably want to start ordering media for a change out. I'd say you can get down to about 25 to 20%. You want to start that change out. You don't want to wait all the way to the end of the life of your media, because you're going to start to get breakthroughs. That corrosive gas or that smelly gas is going to get through. You're going to get complaints, and you're also going to have corroding components. So media sampling and testing. Our media sampling and testing is actually absolutely free for all of our Pure Air customers. We do have various tools to extract media from your units, not get your hands too dirty. Regular testing is a maintenance in my eyes, as your media is the most important lifeblood of your system. So regular maintenance on your media, just making sure, verifying that that media is still removing that toxic gas out of the air and putting in new gas, you know, that good clean air is you know, very vital. We actually have an ISO accredited lab that can test your media for you. We are more than happy to test other manufacturers' media as well as our own. So you could send in other manufacturers' media. We can get you results on that. We just need to know exactly what media it is to test against it. The one good thing as well I like about our media testing is Our media life is given to you in a remaining percentage. We're not big on, oh, change it out every year. This system could last you a year and a half, depending on the usage of that media. It may come in at 50, 35, 25%, whatever it is. And then we'll base that off of, we'll base your change out off of your media life percentage. So we're not just, taking the guesswork out of it. We're not changing it every year. We're changing it as it needs to be changed. And then we would be more than happy to sample media as well for you. If you do not have the capabilities, you can request these bags here from us. We could ship them to you. You get them filled up with about 2 cups of media, all your information here, get them sent back to us. Testing usually takes about 2 to 4 weeks before we can get you results. If you don't have those capabilities, we'd be more than happy to come out to site and test for you, get those media samples, get them shipped back to the lab. Media sampling. So there are various different, I think we had skipped a slide. No, we didn't. Media sampling. So there are various different system types. We have a radial flow here. These are taller systems. They do have testing ports here that you can actually stick that tool down in and get your media out of. You can also open the hatches, as in here. We were doing a full media change out, so we did fly the lid here. This is a V-Bank transition system. As you can see, we did have to take off the hatches as there were no testing ports. And then this one here is another manufacturer's unit, but they do have testing ports. Testing across the board is pretty similar, no matter what unit. And then some units are just not meant or not designed, don't have sampling ports. And so you are going to have to take off that top and then turn off the unit just so you can sample. So. All right, we have another poll question. Have you ever sampled your dry scrubber media to have it tested? All right, it looks like we do have some people who do occasionally, but it looks like the majority of people never, but may start. That is a good, start if we're headed in the right direction there. Okay, media change out. So first things first is disposal. We want to make sure we have proper PPE and we're following all state regulations. Proper PPE when it comes to handling media should be just kind of gloves, safety glasses, respirators are recommended. And then, site-specific PPE, whether it be high-vis, steel toes, and hard hats. So you also just want to have safe handling practices. We don't want to have media all over the place on a site, and so we want to make sure we are clean. You are going to get a light media dust over most surfaces, so it is just behoove you to go back behind yourself and clean up. You're going to have some certified heavy equipment operators to run your equipment here. As you can see, we have quite the large telehandler. We have a vacuum rental here. This is a trailer vac. And so you will have to have some heavy equipment operators. And then something I like to always account for when doing disposals is your used media is actually going to be heavier than your new media. So the new media going into your system is not going to be near as heavy as your used media. And that is just something you need to account for when disposing of something. It is not going to be the exact same weight. So we actually do have some videos here. As you can see, we are doing a change out actively, removing the media through this vacuum. It is going up into this hopper system. And then we will stop the vacuum cycle every so often, have it come down into your super sack. As you can see, that dust likes to get everywhere. And then these super sacks will just be loaded into a dumpster afterwards. And then in this video here, we just have that media coming out of that hopper down into the super sack. You do also have some of that dust, as that media can also be shredded by that vacuum hose. So as it is being removed, it is going to get beat up, and a lot of it is going to come out in that powdered form. As removal does take a toll on the media, as it is already used and is no longer at its maximum compacted state. All right, let's move on. So as you can see, disposal here, coming through the vacuum hose into a hopper over your super sack. And it actually looks like this was just a middle vessel and their main vacuum was a little down the line. They have a crane truck to get those super sacks loaded and unloaded. Also a very good idea. And then just another couple of notes, disposal should adhere to local and state guidelines. And then you want to make sure the landfill that is accepting your material has approved of it, whether it be safety data sheets. You may even need to get lab testing and get those results sent over to them. Okay, replacement of your media. As you can see here, we are flying bags of new media, getting it in here into the system. And then here is replacement of a small PFU system, just adding suitcases, if you will, or cases of media. And we'll play some more videos. As you can see, once you open that pour chute, your media is going to come out of that sack very quickly. That was 1 ton sack right there that empties in less than 10 seconds. So, and here, these guys are inserting it and getting this bad boy ready to ship. So again, with the replacement, you just want to make sure you have those respirators, anything site-specific PPE, and then media can be catered to your installation practices. So if you don't need these giant super sacks and you had a smaller unit, we could even put it in 1 cubic foot boxes and get it shipped out to you. And that could be a lot more friendly for installation purposes, whereas you're not toting around 1 big sack, or you don't have the overhead space to actually lift this and fly it into a unit. You could do it manually by hand. So your mist and grease filters, that's your pre-filtration for media protection. They're going to remove about 99.9% of your water molecules down to 2 microns. They're going to prevent your media bed from compacting and air channeling through it. Air is going to find that least path of resistance. So you definitely don't want that. And then when you do go to remove that media, you're now fighting a big concrete block. Buildup is going to impact your airflow and performance. Again, with these, I'd recommend cleaning them every 3 to 6 months. Most systems you can get away with 6 months. Sometimes you may have to do them every 3. You can pressure wash these and then let them completely dry before replacement. I would say if you need 24/7 filtration, it's going to be behoove you to have a second set on site that you can swap out and then do your maintenance on the ones that were inside the system, and have those sitting on hand in a warehouse or wherever you store them, ready for the next time that you're ready to clean. Signs or mist and grease are going to need attention. You're going to have decreased airflow, visual signs. They'll go from this nice chrome looking color to nice, dirty, and black. dirty filters, that's an easy one, right? And then chem absorbent media clumping, or your moisture level in your media is higher than it should be. You don't want moisture in your media, as that is going to slow down and affect the chemical process. Troubleshooting, we do have some common issues. Reduced airflow, you may have some clumping of your media. It is also best to inspect your mist and grease, maybe even clean them, as well as reduced airflow. You want to check those gauges, make sure you don't have any media clogging those gauge lines. That is a common issue. Odor breakthrough, you may have some spent media. Replace media, or definitely get it sent in for testing. You may be able to move your media around, maybe add more to your bed. There are definitely a few different approaches, but the most plain and simple is definitely going to be replacing that media, testing your samples. Uneven media usage, tunneling, that's probably going to be a faulty media installation. You can definitely smooth out that media bed, possible media needing attention. Again, you definitely want to have a level, smooth media bed all the way across the top. If you're going to have little pockets in there and not pack it down really well, you're going to have penetration of gas when it gets to those pockets. High pressure drop, you may have clogged pressure tubing, moisture in media. You definitely want to inspect the media and calibration of gauges, inlet and outlet readings. Again, this kind of goes with your airflow, your tubing and all that. Your gauges are going to be the first indicators of that. And then increased motor noise. Your motor is definitely one of your more expensive components of a system, and so definitely immediate attention. If not addressed, this usually will kill your motor. You may need bearing replacement, adjustment, or lubrication. Pretty common, lubrication points on those motor bearings and things like that. We want to get them lubricated, get those bearings moving without any friction there. How often do you physically check or look at your dry scrubber? All right, so it looks like we have 25% weekly. I'd say that's pretty good. You want to look at it weekly, give you a good baseline. Let's say you look at it Monday. Next Monday, you notice something's a little different. You've got a good baseline from last week to know what's going on. Monthly, you might not remember what that pressure reading was. Only during scheduled maintenance, I understand. Usually we don't want to, look at every single thing we have on site and baby things like that. But again, the more familiar you are with your system, the quicker you're going to catch an issue. And only when there's an issue, that's a lot more common than you would think. It's easier just to not think about it until it starts to give you an issue. All right, repairing neglect. So we've definitely seen some neglect, but neglect is going to lead to some very costly repairs and shorten life of your unit. These units can easily last 30, 40, 50 years if maintained properly. But again, they're out in some, sun, weather, corrosive environments, wildlife, and just, lack of use even can cause damage to these components. So here we have some grading that was not well maintained. They weren't doing anything to it. When doing media changeouts, actually all their media beds had blended together. Almost all of their screen was gone or eaten away and needed to be completely replaced. Even some of this fiberglass grating, which is really hard to, it's really rugged, really good stuff, needed to be replaced. It just kind of buckled under extreme weights. So this is us putting, new screens, new support rods, the whole 9 yards, getting this unit top to bottom completely back in operational order. And this next picture here, as you can see, this unit actually hadn't run for, I want to say 10 to 12 years. And I was tasked with giving them a list of things needed to get it back up and running. this belt was definitely dry rotted. As I had taken the belt cover off, you could see quite the amount of dirt daubers, wasps. The vessel was actually in decent shape. There were some internal concerns, but I'd say the most expensive thing was sitting on the outside right here, exposed to the weather. It's going to be this motor. They definitely needed some lubrication points, but every time we got this motor going, it was going to trip a breaker. And so we were having an issue there. We're trying to figure out what we can do to get it up and running without having to completely replace this motor. We're thinking there's a short in the line, but I mean, you know, just bumping this thing once a year for the last 10 to 12 years, making sure it's up and running and not, you know, corroded leads or whatever would have saved them a headache and a half. Your small upgrades with a big impact. We definitely have many maintenance process improvements. This kind of goes along with our room sealing here. We can isolate and pressurize your controlled electrical rooms, your MCC rooms, control rooms, and then we'll perform a room integrity test, which is where we pressurize the room to 0.1 inches of water column and make sure that nothing is coming out of there, and we can actually pressurize that room after sealing with 5% of that room's volume of CFM. So that is pretty impressive. And then after you've spent the money on our room sealing services, you actually get to see your tangible results here with our room integrity test to show you. We usually like to do one beforehand, before sealing, to kind of show you where you were, and then afterwards to show you where you're at. There's definitely different monitoring improvements. We talked about the lifeguard a little bit. The electronic monitoring takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. We also have an ECM, which is going to give you your live readings on the room. It has a copper and silver sensor, so those are going to corrode in real time and give it the angstroms built up on the copper. You're going to and silver. You're going to have your temperature and pressure and humidity, and so this will help. The best way I like to think about it is if you've ever been on a surgery wing of a hospital, they have an air curtain where the rooms are pressurized. So anytime that room door is opened, it's going to push all the bad germs out. That's exactly what we do. We get it pressurized to 0.1 inches of water column. So every time that door is opened, it's going to push all that corrosive air out, keeping all your good air in, and you'll never have corrosive air coming between doorways. We also have system adjustments based on chemical load. We do have rental units that we could get out to you while you're either getting a new one, getting your real unit built and sized or installed, or if you have a chemical load change, we can also get one of these put in line to help out with that chemical load change, to help out your existing system as you're either upsizing it or fixing that chemical load change to be back to where your parameters were. And this one is actually for Chris here.
Sure. So as Matt has detailed, I mean, we have a ton of different solutions and service options really to help kind of maintain and make sure you're getting the most out of your system. Traditionally, we kind of have three different types of users, through our research. We have some folks or some customers that just, they want to do everything themselves and maybe just purchase the media and have a large staff capable of doing a lot of the work on site. And we're certainly happy to, handle, help support that. But then we also handle, a lot of opportunities where maybe, the site is a little bit short-staffed, or maybe we need to do the install of the media. So that's certainly an option, and we're always looking to partner with customers to help you guys be successful. And then finally, we do offer a full support option where we'll basically kind of maintain your equipment on site, basically all of the service and maintenance, as well as media for your product. So a ton of options available. What I always say is just kind of, if you have an issue, bring it to us and we'll sort of tailor our offering to do what works best for your system. To the right here, we have some of our more traditional site plans. So we do quarterly maintenance agreements where, we'll come on site, inspect, a large list of checklist items, and basically come every 3 months. And then we also do an annual program that's a little more comprehensive, a few more maintenance items involved there, and as well as multi-year contracts. And again, all of those can be paired with media replacement, equipment inspection, and then upgrades to some of the products like Lifeguard that Matt just detailed. And then finally, we talked about it a little bit, but the electrical room air quality offering that we have, really good for wastewater treatment plants, paper mills, to really find what's going on with products and elements in the room and that are being exposed to the elements and corrosion. So plenty of options available. We're always happy to support you guys, and anything that we can do to help you with your project and with your install, just let us know. Happy to support. Back to you, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Okay. Key takeaways and action items. You definitely want to verify your system is running properly. I think that is a big takeaway. Look like a lot of our operators and whatnot, we only go look at it when we have an issue. I would definitely recommend getting that media in for testing. We'd be more than happy get it tested for you, get you some results, let you know your remaining life. Think about those pre-filters. Get out there, wash those mist and grease filters, maybe get you a backup set if needed. Check your pressure gauges, get your baseline. Always know that pressure gauge. Then you'll know, hey, maybe your gauge is messed up. Maybe you do have a pressure drop that needs to be looked at. And then check that blower. That is going to be that most expensive component of the system usually, or one of the most expensive for sure. And so definitely make sure your leads aren't corroded, anything like that, especially on the chlorine blowers. They only come on for safety reasons. And so I would definitely recommend getting out there every 6 months and bumping that blower on and just making sure she cranks right up. Proper maintenance is definitely going to lead to better performance and longer system life. We don't want to ignore a problem. Minor repairs are going to prevent that major repair later and that sticker shock. That is also, a lot of these sites are very cost effective or efficient, if we will, and it has to fit in the budget. So definitely the more minor repairs that we can do early on, catch them before they make major repairs, is going to help you guys on the budget. Media is the system's lifeline. Again, that is your blood. That is what keeps that heart beating. So make sure that media is good and actually filtering. The less odor complaints, the better. Service contracts are useful to ensure system performance without any work. Again, like Chris was saying, we can cater it to your needs. Maybe you're short-staffed, maybe you just don't have the manpower and time to devote to maintaining that system properly. We'd be out there monthly, however often you want us, and make sure that your system is performing at its peak performance. Thank you all again for your time. We'll start taking questions. And I want to give a big shout out to Chris as well as Randy Shingleton on our Pure Air team for helping me to get this presentation together.